Hello and welcome to this screencast on the aerobic system. First of all, if we just go through the specification really quickly and what we've already covered. So we've looked at ATP and we've looked at how ATP is known as the energy currency of the body and the only usable source of energy. And we've looked at the breakdown of ATP to create that 3 seconds of high intensity exercise. For example, the badminton smash. We've also then looked at the first energy system that we come across, that is the ATP-PC system, and how PC is used to resynthesize ATP. And what we've done for the ATP-PC system is we looked at the type of reaction, the fuel, the site of the reaction, the controlling enzymes, ATP yield, byproducts, and this specific stages within the system. We've also done that for the glycolytic system and looked at how glycogen is broken down to glucose, which then is broken down to provide us with 2 ATP and pyruvic acid, and that is known as anaerobic glycolysis, and that without oxygen present, pyruvic acid is converted to lactic acid via the enzyme LDH, and we've looked at the negative connotations with regards to that. The last thing we need to look at, or the last energy system we need to look at, is the aerobic energy system, which we're going to be starting on this screencast. If we actually just look at a past exam paper that would be specific to the aerobic energy system, we have it here. So an elite marathon runner will have a high or a very high aerobic capacity. Explain how the aerobic system provides energy during a marathon and how cardiovascular adaptations as a result of the aerobic training program can enhance aerobic capacity. What we're going to know by the end of this screencast and then the end of the lesson is the first half of this question. So explain how the aerobic system provides energy during a marathon. Cardiovascular adaptations we won't be able to answer for a few weeks yet when we come on to that topic. However, explain how the aerobic energy system provides energy during a marathon. We are going to be able to answer that part of the question. So, key terms that we must be aware of for the aerobic energy system, specifically this screencast, are these here. So, first of all, mitochondria. Okay, so mitochondria is where aerobic energy production takes place. This here is a mitochondria, okay, and it is the cell where aerobic respiration and energy production occurs. We specifically need to be really aware of this mitochondria matrix and the mitochondria cristae, because this is where two of the sections or processes take place, and you'll see that here now from this. So something else we need to be aware of is the Krebs cycle. Now the Krebs cycle is the second stage of the aerobic energy system. This produces 2 ATP and this takes place in the matrix of the mitochondria. And then we also have the third stage is the electron transport chain or electron transfer chain, and this is where we actually synthesize the 34 ATP, and this takes place in the mitochondria cristae. Okay, so this is really brief. This is just a quick summary of what we need to know. We are going to know how 2 ATP are produced during the Krebs cycle, and then how we get this huge yield of 34 ATP during the electron transport chain. Some of this, or the very start of this, will be very familiar to you because it's the same as a glycolytic system. However, we now have oxygen present. So if we go through this, aerobic system, it is used for low to moderate intensity activity, as the arrival of sufficient oxygen enables continued energy production. So remember, ATP-PC system is used for high intensity energy expenditure, and the glycolytic system is also used for that high intensity work. For example, glycolysis is 400 meters, okay, it is used for or 800 meters, this real high intensity stuff. The aerobic energy system is low to moderate intensity, it is not high intensity. Okay, so the 3 stages and the processes that we need to know. Okay, aerobic glycolysis, which takes place in the muscle sarcoplasm, similar to the ATP-PC system and the glycolytic system. Aerobic glycolysis takes place in the muscle sarcoplasm. Krebs cycle, matrix of the mitochondria or mitochondrial matrix, and finally the electron transport chain takes place in the mitochondrial cristae. We are going to go through the whole process of the aerobic energy system to begin with, and specifically the first stage, which is aerobic glycolysis, which takes place in the muscle sarcoplasm. Please ensure you make sufficient notes on this and also do the diagram that you are going to be shown right now. So just like anaerobic glycolysis, we start with glycogen, which is broken down by GPP into glucose. Glucose is broken down by PFK to create 2 ATP and pyruvic acid. Now Unlike anaerobic glycolysis, oxygen is now available. Okay, so we have oxygen in sufficient supply. This means pyruvic acid is no longer converted into lactic acid. It goes through a link reaction, okay, with something called, or an enzyme called coenzyme A. So pyruvic acid and coenzyme A produces acetyl-CoA, and this allows access to the powerhouse of the muscle cell, okay, which is a mitochondria, which allows the Krebs cycle, or to go into the Krebs cycle. So I'm going to quickly show you this next part. Okay, so oxygen is present. Pyruvic acid now combines with coenzyme A, which equals acetyl-CoA, acetyl-coenzyme A, but you can say it as acetyl-CoA. Okay, so what happens now is we're slowly getting access into the mitochondria now, specifically the mitochondrial matrix where the Krebs cycle takes place. But firstly, this acetyl-CoA has to kind of attach to this molecule called oxaloacetic acid. So acetyl-CoA plus oxaloacetic acid equals citric acid. Now, citric acid is oxidized and goes into the Krebs cycle, which takes place in the mitochondrial matrix, and from the Krebs cycle, it's called a cycle because this goes around and around and around and around in a cycle format. We produce carbon dioxide and we breathe it out. We produce 2 more ATP and we also produce hydrogen. Now, from this, hydrogen atoms are carried through to the electron transport chain, which is the third kind of process, and they're carried along the process via these hydrogen carriers known as NAD and FAD. So it equals NADH, NAD hydrogen, and FADH, FAD hydrogen. These go into the electron transport chain or transfer chain, and this releases enough energy so that we produce 34 ATP. The electron transport chain takes place in the mitochondria cristae. Okay, so the hydrogen ions are oxidized and removed as H2O. We have oxygen present, which means we get this 34 ATP. Now, as a whole combined system, we've got 34 plus 2 plus 2. So we have 38 ATP produced during the aerobic energy system. When all 3 of these stages are combined, 1 molecule of glucose, or 1 mole of glucose, yields 38 moles of ATP. And this is highly efficient and most preferable energy system used for long duration, low to moderate intensity activities such as marathon, triathlons, cross-country skiing, Tour de France cyclists, and so on. Jogging up and down a hockey pitch, football pitch, rugby pitch. The higher the performer's aerobic capacity, the faster oxygen will arrive in plentiful supply, and the switch can be made to aerobic energy production. So make sure that you go back and you can pause this and make sure you have that process of the aerobic energy system written down for me. Thank you. Bye.